All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
I'm so excited. What a show we have for you today. I know. Please. I am bathed in your recorded adulation. It means so much to me. It is Albert who is here today on a Wednesday. Albert,
thank you.
Nice to see you. And Kim, who is here on a Wednesday, and it is nice to see her.
Kim, how are you?
We do have so many people coming to the show today. Albert, I don't know how we're going to do it. We're going to kick things off with a heavy hitter. You know, your leadoff guy, you know this, Commissioner. You want somebody who's going to get on base. Am I right?
Yeah.
You want, make contact, definitely. Solid, you know?
Just set the table.
Yes, set the table. And we've got that with Anthony Davis from the Midas Touch. Did you see that the Midas Touch Network, we've got 40 times as many viewers as Joe Rogan. And I mean, they've really become, top of the heap. I mean, it's not like that. It's not a multiplier of 40, but they have exceeded Rogan in terms of their popularity.
Never been anything like this.
Yeah, they're still on the move. So nice to steal one of their talent for a couple of minutes as we discuss Ukraine, Russia, and the American presidency. It's worth noting that Tulsi Gabbard has been doing her work again. You know, the sycophants, the suck-ups that have surrounded the U.S. president. There is no task too great for them to execute and deliver to their king. And we will get into it and touch on it with Anthony Davis, but essentially she is revoking, at the demand of Trump, the security clearance of 37 U.S. officials who Trump feels, through Laura Loomer or, whomever else keeps track of such things, may have some even tangential relationship to investigations that were associated with Donald Trump in his first term. But again, we'll get into that a bit with Anthony Davis. I also want to watch some stuff and some Fox News Channel call-in.
Oh,
stuff
gee,
that
can't wait
Trump
for that.
Did. Well, I wanted to watch it with Anthony, so that's sort of the idea. Yeah.
I heard he wants to go to heaven.
Yeah, I'll play you a little bit of that. I think that's being it's so overreported. God, the U.S. media. Geez,
because
man.
Caroline Leavitt said he meant it.
Yeah, he meant
that
it.
The whole reason he's trying to make peace between Russia and Ukraine is because he has designs with God to get into heaven.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. All I would say is that Trump knows nothing, right? According to David K. Johnston, Trump knows nothing about anything. But I'll tell you what he does know. He knows there's no heaven. And so he can, squawk all he wants about heaven and God because he doesn't believe in either one of them. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
This guy is one of the cornerstones of the Midas Touch Network. He's a friend of the show. We love him. Anthony Davis, everyone. Hi, Anthony Davis.
Hello, Mark. Nice to see you.
Well, you still have a spot in heaven, potentially, my friend, because everything about you is heavenly. I
never know what to say when you do this stuff. I can only sit here in a kind of British silence.
Yeah. You look so beautifully tan and healthy, and I look so cadaverous and like a hospital patient that just got out to do this show and has to go back. Why is that?
And we actually have the same camera, so I don't really know.
I will grant you that I'm pale-ish, but I'm not this pale.
No, I've seen your skin, and it's not that pale.
Yeah, I don't understand it, but you are my North Star when it comes to everything technical. Anthony Davis will come over and he'll tweak stuff because we live in in Los Angeles. And he's the best that way. So I'd say your work is not done, sir.
I'll be back.
All right. All right, moving on. I want to start with what's happening just of the moment, and then let's get back to Ukraine and Russia, and I want to play you a little Fox News Channel. I only have you for a very short time. Tulsi Gabbard has, at the express desire of the president, gotten rid of the security clearances of 37 different U.S. officials. And there were attempts made to try to protect certain high-ranking scientists who are critical to the nation in any number of ways we can get into, but those attempts were kneecapped, and Tulsi Gabbard again strips that security clearance from dozens of these intelligence officials. Now, the idea was that these are people who are, she says, have engaged or are engaged in politicizing and manipulating intelligence and leaking classified intelligence without authorization, and or committing intentional egregious violations of tradecraft standards. There is no proof offered for this. It feels like a political hit job, and even the language, while I'd suggest it's cloaked in that kind of DNI language, it feels Trumpian. And it's really, to me, the takeover of yet another agency by the Trump attitude and strategy toward political vengeance.
That's exactly what it is. I mean, we need to stop reporting on the stuff that they want us to say, because, you know, Trump is a criminal, and the people that he surrounds himself with are criminals, and they've been given the keys to the federal government and to the judiciary and even to the Supreme Court. And so, you know, we must not be surprised at any of this. This is just part of the deconstruction of the administrative state. That's all it is. We knew about it. We read about it in Project 2025. Obviously, they can't do everything on day one, so they are working their way through it. And Trump, as you know, I mean, the fact that he kind of keeps repeating Russia, 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 you know, in front of Putin, it's so embarrassing, you know. But this is what they're trying to do. They are very much of the opinion that everyone is against them. And I sit there watching them when they say, everyone, why are people against us? And it's like, because you're criminals. Literally, everything you're doing is criminal. So, of course, this is a desire, as they often have, to, you know, get rid of anybody who is disloyal. And unless you believe that Trump should have won the 2020 election, unless that is your opinion, and you believe that the Democrats and goodness knows who, George Soros or somebody, rigged the election against Trump, then you can't be in the administration.
So the other thing that we learn in the news drop overnight is that Jeanine Pirro, who was then a weekend host of Fox News, was apparently telling the Republican National Committee chair, this is in a text message, and a lot of this is revealed in the Smartmatic cases that are brought against Fox News Channel, and, you know, the voting machine cases. And they've already won a bunch of these cases already, but this is information that's coming out in relation to those. So despite the network prohibiting on-air personalities from political involvement, she wrote, quote, "I work so hard for the party across the country." She was writing to Ronna McDaniel in the message. And she then went on to say, "I'm the #1 watch show on all news and cable all weekend, and I work so hard for the president and the party." You realize that, you know, the propaganda machine of Fox News Channel is real. They perpetuated the lie of a stolen election. And then in all of these different text messages, you see revealed the scheme to, despite even memoranda saying don't do this, to do it anyway.
And that's why they settle. You know, remember the Fox News payment was $787.5 billion, right? Million dollars, which is almost $1 billion, which is unprecedented. I mean, and the fact that they didn't dispute it, they disputed it. I mean, they obviously, Dominion wanted a whole lot more, as is the case with Newsmax. But the fact that they paid is an admission of guilt, as I see it. They would probably argue otherwise, but it's pretty much the case. Because they don't have a case. You know, this is the thing about, you know, modern communication, is that everything is recorded, whether it be on a text message or whether it be on a voicemail or whether it be on an email. It's all recorded. This is why Trump likes the phone, you know, because he kind of likes to operate in the shadows, and why he kind of flushes paperwork down the toilet or eats it, you know. But these people are banged to rights, effectively. They know that this is all part of the performative nature of Fox, performative nature of Newsmax. I mean, we on the Midas Touch Network refer to Fox as the state regime media. That's what it is. It's just state regime media. And something has to change. We can't just keep reporting these stories like they're a surprise or that they're a shock or they're, because this is corruption and criminality happening in plain sight. And, initially, like, a bit like January 6th and the setup to it, it was like a new thing. Nobody had really done anything quite as organized as that before. But when you pull out the frame and you kind of get a sense of the bigger picture, these people are either evil, criminal, or both. And Jeanine Pirro she's just Donald Trump in kind of miniature in Italian suits. She is as terrible as he is. She is also she's hardly smarter than he is either. And I really worry that by putting people with no expertise in senior positions throughout the government, that is what is ultimately going to bring this government down. Because, dictatorships fall. They all fall. And this one will collapse. And as the economy starts to collapse, they will lose any kind of authority that they currently have, because everything is fake. I mean, Caroline Levitt got up in the press room and tried to tell us what we didn't see around the negotiating table with the EU leaders. Like, she literally was telling us stuff that wasn't actually happening. This desire to rewrite the narrative and claim that something is black when it's white. And I'm just done with all that. People are smarter than they are.
He's ridden to power on that playbook, of course. Sure. By saying, black
but we have to cut it off. We have to cut it off. I mean, Gavin Newsom's trying to do that, right? By playing around with him with this social media stuff and posting AI images of basically Newsom being Trump, playing him at his own game. And, some Democrats don't get it and they don't like it and they don't understand it. Morning Joe, I mean, he can't get his head around it at all, but there needs to be more of this kind of stuff because these people are clowns. They're not skilled. They don't have the smarts. So expose them as clowns. Send them up. Laugh them off the stage. Instead of reporting what is happening and giving it credence. Because Trump did not have a proper meeting with Putin. He didn't have one of those. Like, nothing was really discussed. Nothing came of it. And yet it was reported like this was a massive event. And it literally was just a photo opportunity. Then he invites the enemy into his car.
Thank you. It was nothing more than a photo op.
Right.
And the intransigence of Vladimir Putin is on full display.
Mm-hmm.
He shows up to this thing. He says exactly what he was saying at the beginning of this war.
Hasn't changed his story at all.
And I don't know. I think all the rest of this story is sort of performative on some level. I've only got you for 3 more minutes. I want to quickly run, because he mentioned the telephone. Trump calls into Fox News Channel. He's asked, how did the European leaders react when you called Vladimir Putin in the middle of the meeting? You have that, Albert? We run a little bit of that.
Vladimir Putin. What was the reaction among the other people in the room, and what was President Putin's reaction to being brought into a phone call in the middle of your meeting?
Well, I think they expected it. I didn't do it in front of them. I thought that would be disrespectful to President Putin. I wouldn't do that.
To Putin.
Had the warm relations, and actually President Putin wouldn't talk to people from Europe. I mean, that was part of the problem. They had no communication. They had no communication with the White House for years, as people died. Years with Biden and his people. No communication. Putin told me years. It was years that he didn't speak to anybody from the White House. And it was a long time that he didn't speak to anybody from Europe. No, it's a fractured relationship. And when I came in, I always had, despite the Russia hoax, which truly was a very dangerous thing for our country, but despite that, I maintained a very good relationship. I mean, you saw that when he got off his plane, I got off my plane. There's a warmth there that you can't, there's a decent feeling. And it's a good thing, not a bad thing. People would say, oh, that's such a terrible thing. It's not a terrible thing. You know what? We've got the most nuclear weapons in the world and the most powerful.
Okay,
Yeah.
You get it. It's the thing is, Anthony Davis, he gets played like a fiddle by people like Putin.
no mention of the fact that Putin is an indicted and wanted war criminal. No, he even mentioned the other day, oh, well, if Putin saw that, he'd probably do off with them, referring to the fact that Putin kills people. So he knows that Putin kills people, not just, the tens of thousands of people that he kills in wartime, but also in peacetime. He kills his own generals. He kills his opposition leaders. He is a wanted killer and criminal. And Trump, the reason that Trump thinks that he's doing a good thing by bringing relations together and he can't understand why previous presidents isolated Russia is because he's also a criminal. And the criminals stick together. I don't know if you know criminals. In London, I had a few friends who had served time and they were worked in the criminal community, and all their friends are criminals, and everything they know is a criminal thing, and they just can't help it. I mean, it's that's where the phrase career criminal comes from. And they've gone straight since I knew them, so just point that out. But what people need to remember is that Donald Trump is not a proper president. He does not represent the United States. He is in it for himself, trying to protect himself from his own criminality and prosecutions. And this is only going to get worse. There will be no deal with Ukraine. Anybody who thinks there's going to be a deal is living in cloud cuckoo land. He is just playing for time so that Putin can continue to bomb the hell out of Ukraine. And anybody who thinks that that's going to change is missing the point. America is on the side of Russia. The European leaders, they rushed there. They weren't invited to the White House. They came there to save Ukraine from, losing its sovereignty completely to Russia and America combined. This is going to get very, very messy indeed, and we're only just seeing the start of it.
I couldn't agree more. Thanks for being here. I'll let you go. Go find him. Midas Touch Network, the great Anthony Davis. See you, my friend. Love seeing you always. All the best.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, he's pretty cool. He is pretty cool. And that was a good reducto on what's happening. It is true that Ukraine's interests are not being represented in any back and forth between America and Russia. And Russia, as I've mentioned, Putin hasn't moved 1 centimeter off of the positions he had when this entire conflict began. So it's great. I'll fly to Alaska. I'll meet you. We'll have a high-profile meeting. You'll get to hug me. We'll drive around in your car for a couple of minutes. We'll spend some time in a conversation where I essentially restate my position, the Russian position that I, Vladimir Putin, have had since this entire conflict began. I'll make it clear to you that Ukraine started this whole thing and the NATO alliance started this. You guys in NATO are provoking all of this and actually provoked this initial conflict. And then we'll take some pictures. I'm not staying for lunch. I got to be back in Moscow for a dental appointment. See you later. It's like that. It reminded me, I'll tell you, of when Trump went to meet with Kim. Remember when Trump went to meet with Kim, he wanted to meet
Kim, how are you?
The DMZ. It was a very historic moment as an American president is meeting the leader of North Korea.
Someone say Kim?
Exactly. And it went beautifully. By Trump's estimation, right? His appraisal of things was that, hey, I met with Kim. We had a productive conversation, whatever verbiage was actually attached to that. There they are, Trump and Kim. And the warmth, he loves me, I love him. He sent me love letters. It was great. We're still in touch. Did anything change? No. The rhetoric changed for a little while. Was there any attempt to denuclearize North Korea? Was there any attempt to inquire about and even make progress on many of the human rights violations? To call them violations is to be polite about it, that are going on in North Korea? No. It was all a photo op. This is a performer. We have a performer as president. Now, that doesn't mean that his presidency isn't informed by corruption, self-enrichment, and vengeance. The vengeance is on full display. But The idea somehow that you're going to get anything from these summit meetings more than the performative, one-dimensional aspects that are reflected here in a photo op, I think is lunacy. The scary part is their real lives at stake. You know, Trump talks about the thousands of people who are dying every week. I mean, he makes up a lot of figures, you know, even in these conversations and talking about it. But, you know, he's not wrong. I mean, war is a horrible, horrible thing. The atrocities of war that have been perpetrated by the Russians are unspeakably awful. I mean, Putin is a war criminal. And I'm sure on the Ukrainian side, there has been, because war has this, there has been a lot that also falls into that category. But the horror of this conflict is not something that Donald Trump is committed to solving in any kind of way that involves a real heavy lift. He will show up. He'll show up before the cameras and, you know, where do I pick up my Nobel Peace Prize? That's sort of what he wants to do. And this is the point I made to David K. Johnston yesterday, and then I have a guest waiting. But the point I made to David K. Johnston, and I kind of was looking for sort of verification from David K. Johnston because he's so smart. It seems to me that Trump is baby stepping away, like slowly stepping away from wanting to be part of this Ukraine-Russia brokering the peace thing. He's starting to see that this is a lot more complicated than just showing up, smiling, and holding up a bowling trophy. That's what he really does.
You mean the whole one phone call thing? That was a no-go?
Yeah. One phone call, have a meeting in Alaska, get you two guys together, you kids work this stuff out, and I'll be back at the house. And, you know, again, when we have the trophy presentation, I'll be there for that. He's now realizing that there's a lot more at stake, and there's a lot more that hasn't changed, and the intransigence of Putin may be something that's starting to get through to him. Certainly, I'm sure it gets through to Rubio and some of the other people in the room. Anyway, point is, I think he's going to try to foist this whole thing onto the Europeans, that he's going to try to step back. And America's role in this, normally prominent, is going to actually diminish as Trump begins to pull America out of these negotiations. Hey, I put the two guys together, Putin and Zelensky. I mean, they're the guys in charge. If they can't make a deal, that's not my problem. I think there's a little bit of that going on. I mean, he's already said, oh, no problem. I can put you together with Putin. I've got him on speed dial. No problem. I'll put you guys together. And what does the Kremlin say? There are no plans to meet with Volodymyr Zelensky. So I think, and David K. Johnston agreed with me, which I felt sort of comforted by, because I think I see this, and it's cool to see another smart person in David K. Johnston who also notices it. I just feel as though Trump, for as much of a centerpiece as he is in everything right now, is actually going to recede from the scene. That's my prediction.
Wasn't he saying just yesterday that Putin was going to make a deal? Remember his caught on cam or caught on hot mic, that he said Putin will do it. He told the French president because he wants to do it for me.
Right. That was a wild thing to hear. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, talk about getting drunk on your own BS. I mean, man. So the sad thing is, and the reason I think Trump has kind of a one-dimensional understanding of this as well. I mean, one of the reasons that Ukraine is so critical, as you're aware, is it's an economic engine, agriculturally certainly to much of the world, and certainly to the EU. And there are mineral reserves there. There's oil there. I mean, there's a lot in Ukraine beyond just the killing in these wars. There is territory to be taken, and there are treasures to be mined. And that is part of Putin's plan as well. I also don't see Putin retreating from those areas that he's already taken. And that's at least the articulated view of Zelensky, that he wants that territory back. I don't see any way that happens. So we could be in for a long ride. And no peace agreement on the horizon. But I'll be interested to, we'll talk to John about it next. John Diaz is going to join us in just a moment. He's a super smart guy too. So, but I really want to talk to him about California politics, as well as California begins to take on some prominence, right, in the conversation as to national elections and beyond. Albert, before I get to John, is there anything else I need to do? Albert is here today. He's the master of all that is organizationally important on this show.
Albert, thank you.
What, anything?
No, I think we're ready for John.
Anything in the chat I need? I don't like to delay with John, but I do want to make sure that I have everything taken care of.
We have some starred comments here.
Is there just anything I need to answer in this first half hour? CBD says Tulsi's latest action is another attempt by this administration to discredit the assessment of Russia's intervention in support of Trump in 2016. This administration will stop at nothing. Of course, that's true. That's a reasonable point to make. And Agolf says Darth Newsom is trolling all the MAGA with 3 a.m. caps lock tweets, and they have not the faintest clue as how to react without making Donald look absurd. It is. I want to talk to John about that, too, just because this is a new kind of social media warfare. Wes Theory with a $5 super sticker. Thank you for that, Wes. OG of the show. Love having you here. Big shout out to you. Yeah. And no Kim today. Did I miss something? Says K Plant. Kim, how are you?
Kim, how are you?
No, Kim is here. She's here in a very, very big way. Yeah. It's not a no Kim day. So she's here most of the time. All right. We'll get back to everything else as time permits. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
This is really cool. We'll get a chance to talk to somebody who's super smart and worked as the opinion editor at the San Francisco Chronicle for years. And he also just did all of this real journalism. Was a reporter I was reading at the Red Bluff Daily News, and then worked in the Washington Bureau of the parent company, Don Ray Media Group. Then he went to Philadelphia, the Associated Press, the State House reporter, and then the assistant city editor for the Denver Post. I mean, this is a real journalist, a vanishing breed, I might say. And then the longtime, of course, opinion editor at the San Francisco Chronicle. How about it for the great John Diaz, everyone? Hey, John. So
Hello,
cool
Mark.
to,
great to be with you.
I loved your, maybe it was one of your last pieces that you wrote, or like a farewell piece where you kind of reflected on the San Francisco Chronicle. That was one of my favorites because I loved the San Francisco Chronicle. I loved, I was there in the age of Herb Cain, who was this society/political writer. And the sports green, the sports section was literally green. The paper had a personality, and you talk about that sort of in kind of your farewell to the old paper.
Yeah, it really did. It called itself the voice of the West, and it really seemed to be for a long time. More recently, as with many U.S. newspapers, it's gone through some tough times, but still printing, at least digitally, mainly.
Yeah, I want to get into some of the California politics that are so relevant to national politics with you, because you know that stuff so well. But just because you mentioned, the move to digital and what's happening to newspapers, I'm such a creature of the paper. I think I just grew up with multiple papers in my house, I think. But give me your thoughts on what's happening with this sort of ad-supported media and journalism.
Well, it's really evaporated in terms of the print media, and the advertising base is just not there for digital. That's why we're seeing so much shrinkage in the number of newspaper journalists who are out there, or journalists generally. I mean, you look at it, for the longest time, if you had a major metropolitan newspaper, it was almost like a license to print money, because readers not only tolerated the ads, but they saw that as part of the value of the newspaper. Whereas now, what do you think when you hit a bunch of digital ads? They're an annoyance. So they're not as valued, and as a result, they're not paying as much as in the old days.
That's a really great point. It never occurred to me that you don't look at digital ads and pop-up ads the same way you'd look at ads in the paper.
So
That's
true.
absolutely true.
Yeah.
It's I guess, and I just am learning this from you for the first time, sort of, that it's mostly a digital presence that the San Francisco Chronicle, your old paper, has. I didn't realize so few people get the home delivery of the Chronicle.
Well, one of the problems, Mark, is because the deadlines have been so compressed at not only the Chronicle but other major newspapers, that you're basically getting 2-day-old news when you get the print edition.
Sure.
So we're really, it just does not have the value. If you want to see how the Giants did, before you go to bed, let alone waiting for the newspaper the next morning.
And I guess you can read the columns of so many of those great beat writers, and you can read them online now, and it's sort of, you don't greet the paper with the same anticipation. It's true. I still get 2 papers delivered to the house, but a lot of the articles I've already read online. Yeah, and of course I have many, many more subscriptions. I mean, many, many more than I could even read every day to all of these different publications. I want to turn you toward what's happening in California and use you as a resource. You know the State House so well. You know Newsom. You know where the bodies are buried in California. And so tell me, the California back and forth with Texas, first of all, the attempt to redraw over the redraw. They're redrawing in Texas, we'll redraw in California. Game that out for me.
Well, first of all, Mark, there's no question that the redistricting in California, the partisan gerrymander to offset Texas, is going to pass. They have supermajorities in both the Senate and Assembly, and it's going to be headed toward the ballot in November. It's going to be not, even though we think of California as a very blue state, as both of us know, it's still, Democrats are roughly 45% of California voters. Republicans, of course, are down more like 25%, and maybe even a little less than that. Nevertheless, there's no question that you're going to have the partisan Democrats, the electeds, the activists are going to be very strongly supporting this. But what we know for sure is that there's going to be a huge amount of money pouring in against it. And it's putting a lot of people in a quandary, people who strongly supported this idea of an independent commission. I certainly did. And at the same time, I see the reality. I did then. I see the reality now where, what can you do? Can you just, unilaterally withdraw from what is going to be a battle royale and with huge consequences? It's going to be interesting, but I think it's going to be a hard sell. I think it's going to be a very vicious campaign. I would not be surprised if the opponents try and personalize it on Newsom, on the opponents of the redistricting.
The ballot initiative will be a hard sell.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
And an interesting sidelight is when the independent commission was on the ballot back in 2010. It was really pushed by Republicans. Governor Schwarzenegger, a lot of Republicans were for it because they didn't like the Democrats redistricting. The good government groups, earnest editorial writers all supported it, but the Democrats were strongly against it. In fact, most of the California Democratic delegation was not only opposing it, but putting money into it. Well, here's an interesting point. When you have a fair redistricting, it actually ended up benefiting Democrats. Back in 2010, when this was on the ballot, the Democrats held 34 of 53 congressional seats, House seats, whereas today it's 43 of 52. So they actually advanced the idea of having fair elections, competitive elections, turned out to be to the Democrats' advantage.
Well, there's always that risk that you get self-owned if you redistrict too aggressively, and it can happen. But boy, these are new lines that would appear to be sort of unbreakable for the Dems in California and for the GOP in Texas. So, but even the way we're doing it in California to work around the neutral, nonpartisan redistricting, to even offer that up for vote, is way more than they're doing in Texas. I mean, Texas, it's a real railroad.
Yes, the voters ultimately are going to have the final say, and it's going to be an interesting sell because I'm keeping a close eye. Obviously, Arnold Schwarzenegger has already come out and said that he's going to actively oppose this. But when you have groups like the League of Women Voters, which was a big advocate of redistricting reform, they've announced that they're going to oppose this measure. Common Cause, it looks like there's quite an internal battle, which was another big proponent of independent redistricting. So it's going to be interesting how they frame this for the average person, because usually when you talk about redistricting, it's kind of like campaign finance. The real participants in that debate tend to be the good government groups and editorial writers, and there where the average person really doesn't give it that much thought. Although there was a really good argument in 2010, basically, people should be picking their politicians and not the other way around. Mark, this would be my suggestion for Gavin Newsom and others who are promoting this. Don't get into the sort of debates about democracy or even the internal political battle. What they need to bring to Californians is that the fact that there's no check right now on the Trump administration. Both houses of Congress has rolled over. So what does it mean for me as a Californian? What does it mean for me when I go to the grocery store or go to Walmart and I see that these tariffs, which were normally be something that Congress should be involved with, they've walked away from that. What's it mean with those higher prices? What does it mean in California when the original Trump bill and this one as well have restricted the amount of state and local taxes that you can deduct? That has a profound effect on housing prices. What they've done with student loans, where students are going to have to pay more, that has a huge effect for young people on affordability. They need to bring this to the kitchen table.
This is why you're the former opinion editor of the San Francisco Chronicle. That's a great take. It so speaks to the problem the Democrats have, the selling of some political philosophy, democracy, which means different things to different people. No, talk about what it really means to me. And that checklist that you just went down is beautiful. I feel like Newsom gets it. Am I wrong?
No, I think he does. And it's interesting to see, obviously I've followed Gavin Newsom from the time that he was appointed to the Board of Supervisors in 1997. He had been on the Traffic and Parking Commission, which is not the traffic and parking. It's not important in San Francisco. But he has sort of steadily risen. I think in the past month, I've seen more passion from Gavin Newsom than I had seen at any other point in his career. He's obviously been an advocate on a lot of issues, including difficult issues. He was out there early on same-sex marriage. But I think the turning point that really pushed the button of Gavin Newsom was when he had the Trump administration sent the National Guard and then troops into Los Angeles. I think he really was over his objections. I think that since then you've seen like a really fired up Gavin Newsom, which is interesting.
And I think, I guess to your prior point, in addition to being fired up, he's hitting and able to play a bit in the same way in which the Democrats are being hit and being played by the GOP. I think there's something of an art to that, and he feels as though, at least based on what I've seen, up to that task.
Yeah, as someone who has watched the evolution of Gavin Newsom, he has become so much better as a communicator. He's always been very wonkish, and he certainly has been engaged in all the issues. But he's now has found a way to distill his messages in ways that people can really relate to. I know you mentioned before I came on the trolling that he's doing on Trump, basically mimicking, Trump's outrageous memes that he puts in and statements that he puts on Truth Social and other social media. I think Trump. Gavin Newsom has always been pretty savvy. In fact, when it comes to technology, in fact, I may be one of the few people who are watching this who actually read his book Citizenville a few years ago on how government can use technology to better serve the people. But I think he sees the opportunity by mocking Trump to get under his skin, and also not just to get under his skin, but to show the general public how absurd these posts are by the President of the United States.
Yeah, the absurdity is key. I want to ask you about the state of California in our last minute or so, because I love it. I love California. I always dreamt of living here. I grew up in Washington, D.C., which is its own craziness, of course, and now it's a different kind of town than when I grew up. I mean, it's filled with even more money and even more defense contractors and even more wealthy lobbyists. And I always dreamt of coming to California, and I've been here now, for a really, really long time, decades. And it's different. I worry about California, and I know you too have an attachment to California, but you also have an understanding of some of these challenges, fiscal challenges, political challenges. This is where you really, I think, can speak so learnedly about not only the way the state has changed, but whether California has the ability, I'm talking about fiscally, and I'm talking about politically, and I'm just talking about in its bones, to turn back a lot of the problems that seem to have beset the state. Can you just spend a minute? I know that's a big question, but I feel like you're uniquely qualified to at least weigh in on it.
Well, Mark, California has and will continue to be an incredible economic engine when you look at where it would rank among the largest economies in the world. But it's certainly income inequality has been a problem for in a long time in California, and it's gotten notably worse, particularly with the housing crisis, the frustration that young people coming up, those of us who are parents with kids in California, realizing how difficult it is to achieve the American dream in the state, especially housing affordability, but everything in terms of upward mobility. And I think, California has a very progressive sales income tax, which in some ways is what a lot of people would like to see more of in the federal level. But when you're so dependent not only on a few relatively, wealthy, comparatively wealthy individuals, but also the dependence on capital gains tax makes it so volatile. Just a couple of years ago, they were swimming in money, expanding programs, and now they're staring at deficits both on the state and local level.
How did the high-speed rail program get to be such a mess? And I ask it because you're going to hear more about the the high-speed rail program in California. You're going to hear way more about it, because if Gavin Newsom runs for president, you're going to hear about that, and you're going to hear about homelessness, and you're going to hear about a bunch of other stuff that is effed up about California. And if you elect Gavin Newsom, he's going to do the same thing in Washington that he's doing in California. But the reason I mention the rail program is it really is, by anyone's estimation, a horror show.
Oh, that's absolutely true. And there's no question, Mark, that politics was a big factor there in terms of the routing of it. I mean, right now we're looking at basically, with no offense to those who live in the Central Valley, train from nowhere to nowhere in terms of the economic, really travel patterns of California.
Where should it have started, John? Where should it have begun?
Well, I think there should have been there should have been more groundwork ahead of time, because they ran into all kinds of problems of getting it to San Francisco and getting it to LA. How do we go over this mountain pass? And there just wasn't enough thought. And of course, the original budget estimate was just ridiculously low especially given California's track record of staying on budget on projects like the rebuild of the eastern span of the Bay Bridge. I think it needed more planning ahead of time, and then it ran into all kinds of environmental roadblocks, neighbor and city roadblocks. So I think whether it's salvageable, I don't know, but there's no way when you look at the original promise of you could get from San Francisco to Los Angeles in just 3 or 4 hours, or even less than that. It's just that's not going to happen, and certainly they're not going to be getting any money from the Trump administration, and it's even a tough sell in California.
Oh yeah, I mean, the Californians look at it and say this is a colossal waste of money, as you say, rife with politics, rife with the bad planning, and I don't want to put. If you had anything to do with this project, I want to put you in charge of managing a kid's birthday party. I mean, this is just horrible. So, it's a shame because it really is something that, you go to Europe, somehow they made it happen. You can go from one part of Europe to the other on rail, and you ought to be able to go from one part of California to the other, Anyway, I think we're going to hear more about it. So I was really curious about it because I know you follow it. You followed every beat of that story. And what's going to happen in San Francisco in our last minute? I mean, which way do you see that city swinging?
Well, interesting with their new mayor, Daniel Lurie. I think he's certainly as pragmatist by San Francisco standards, conservative, which means he's center left anywhere else in the world. But I think there's going to be, I think San Francisco it's actually having another rejuvenation with AI, artificial intelligence. It's certainly, people coming back into San Francisco. But it's so depressing. There's a major shopping mall, the San Francisco Center, that was a block away from the Chronicle, that is basically become all but dormant. I was there, most recently, almost a year ago, and every single, Nordstrom had left, other Bloomingdale's had left. Every remaining business had a security guard outside. Now, what does that tell you?
Yeah. This is to be continued because I'll also tell you it's a bit of a guilty pleasure for me. I love San Francisco so much, and I could talk about San Francisco because it brings back, reminiscence of one sort or another, and it was a city that has reinvented itself along the way. When I was there in the 80s, that South of Market area of San Francisco, that was just a warehouse space, and I was always hearing about, oh no, there's going to be a Renaissance, and there were pockets of Renaissance-ish stuff like underground clubs too. And I remember that Harry's bar, I think, opened. That Harry Denton, who was a big deal in San Francisco, opened a place South of Market, and then it happened. Tech came in, and South of Market just blew. I couldn't believe it. I mean, it was everything they promised. And now to hear you relate these stories about how there's a change, it's like, the second act of an Arthur Miller play or something. Everything begins to get darker, and the realities of certain aspects of life in San Francisco begin to weigh down the city. And it breaks my heart. I love that city,
And COVID was obviously a major factor here, as well as the movement toward people working from home. It used to be people commuted into San Francisco, much less so today.
Yeah, the ripple effect is powerful. John, will you come visit again? I love talking to you. Thank you.
Anytime. It was my pleasure, Mark.
Really. John Diaz, everybody. We'll talk soon, my friend. Good stuff.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
Right on. How cool is he? He is great. John Diaz, hooray. What a surprise, Mark. Thank you, says Maud Day. Yeah, it was a great moment for me, too. We'll talk more to him in the days ahead because, California politics is at the center of so much, and he just knows the territory so well. He's a real resource. So thank you, Maud, for recognizing that. Scott Rittenberg with a $10 super chat. Hey, YouTube, I've subscribed to the Mark Thompson Show forever. Why do I have to hunt for this live show that I watch faithfully every gosh darn day? This is all in caps if you're just listening and not watching.
Why are you yelling?
Does YouTube want me away from the Mark Thompson Show? Fix the freaking algorithm already, says Scott Rittenberg.
Why are you yelling?
Yeah.
I do have a solution for Scott.
Oh.
If you subscribe to the show, it'll appear in your subscription box. And if you check on YouTube, there should be a notification bell. And if you have that on, you'll get live updates on any of your devices, your computer, your laptop, your iPads, your phone. Anytime we go live, right at 11 o'clock, right on the dot, you'll know. So
I love that. The commissioner with some news you can use.
Albert, thank you.
Yeah. It is true. You want to hit that notification bell.
Mm-hmm.
That will keep you in touch. But it's also true what Scott is saying, that some shows, and it's being suggested by some people that they are political shows that maybe not don't speak positively always about the current administration or whatever it might be, are played down in the algorithm. And for that reason, you have to, if you would, for our part, share the show on your social media. Try to establish a momentum. That's why the thumbs up are important. It's weird, but it matters. So there's that too. And the other thing is that you have to make sure that your subscription to the show is still there. A lot of the subscriptions are rolled off occasionally. Again, these are things that I read about. So do make sure that you're subscribed and that you hit the notification bell. And hopefully, as Albert says, you'll be able to know when we're doing anything or there's a video dropping. There is a special video dropping this weekend, a really special conversation. I hope you'll, with one of the most extraordinary people you'll ever hear from.
What?
An incredible tale. Yeah, that's this weekend. Ms. Organic with a $10 super chat says, Mark, Kim, Tony, happy National Radio Day. Yeah,
thanks, Tony.
I know. I so miss KGO. It is National Radio Day. Pretty cool. I have
You know what that means? You have to give us your best radio voice.
yeah, you know what's cool about radio, and some of you boys and girls are old enough to remember this. Let me just see if there's I thought I had a mug from one of my first big full-time commercial radio jobs. Was in Buffalo, New York. Shout out to Buffalo. Love my Buffalonians. Big shout out.
Big shout out.
And it was on a 50,000 watt clear channel station like KGO. We went down the East Coast. I was on at night, 7 to midnight. And then they moved me to afternoon drive after that. Anyway.
I have my old mic flag. Can you see it?
Oh, yeah. There's the KGO mic flag. Yeah, right on. And
Like
KGO is a
50
news talk station, which is, and even KGO went through a lot of changes and different hosts along the way. But just for me, I do have a great face for radio. Thank you, Nalafidi. And this is awful for me, have to be. But by the way, I'll remind you, I know I look cadaverous here with this. I don't know why I look so pale with this camera. But I did have a distinguished, 35-year career in television. How dare you? How dare you in any way insult me that way? It's just, I had
Don't talk to me that way.
Exactly. My God, I had a hit television series on the network. How dare you? I mean, it's
Seriously, what the
Anyway, let me just get back to radio for a second. So when I came up, there were the rock stations, like, they were the time check, 11:57 KB radio, blah, 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 blah. We got an album rush coming up next hour, that kind of thing. You talk over the music, all that stuff. That was like the pop rock stations, 99X in New York, Power 106 and Kiss FM in Los Angeles. And, there were the FM stations, though, that were coming up in the 70s. They had these FM stations, and it was a totally different take. They played music, too, but they played like 3 songs in a row. Like, that was a big deal. And then the jocks would come on. They go, that's a cut from the new Grateful Dead album. And they're going to be on tour through the West. You can find those tour dates. They'll be posted soon. Coming up, be playing some Jackson Brown for you. I mean, that's the way. I mean, honest to God, I was talking to them. KFOG. It was and then eventually, of course, FM took over because they took over as a music station, and AM became this dominant sports and information band. And now you cut to, and that's where we rose with KGO, dominant station KGO, brilliant personalities, great stuff. Used to listen to them every day. They had, as I say, they were dominant. And then digital really began to invade the space, streaming, and that's kind of where we are now, So ad-supported legacy media is on the way down, but it's a great thing that they celebrate radio on one day, I miss KGO so much. My therapist says you're all rooting for me. Says I miss KGO so much. Mm-hmm. Yeah. My therapist says you're all rooting for me. I love that. Steven Seaweed. That's right. KRQR and KMEL. KMEL. So KMEL was the station in San Francisco. They were like, 106 KMEL. And here's a cut from Chrissy Hind, Pretenders. And then they went rock. And they became like, whatever they are, 106.
They were a rap station.
And then they went hip hop,
in the 2000s too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm giving you, like, I checked out in the 80s. I don't know. Yeah. But KFRC and KEWB. Yeah. KFRC was a rock station in the 80s. KFRC, which is an AM station.
Top 40, right?
Top 40. Dr. Don Rose was the morning guy. He was like this legendary guy. I think he made more money probably than anybody in America as a morning guy in San Francisco.
Do the weather, he'd say, it's 82 and San Jose.
Yeah, he had a lot of that stuff,
tomato.
like the canned jokes, like from the joke book that he'd get every morning. He would do it. I mean, he was insanely popular. And Jan Black, who was Ron Owens and is Ron Owens' wife, but when they lived in San Francisco, Ron was on KGO, and Jan, not many people remember this, she was Dr. Don Rose's news person.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like Kim sort of to me.
Yeah.
And it was really funny. He had a drop, just like I have a drop for Kim.
Kim, how are you?
He had a drop that said, "That's right, Jan. That's right, Jan." I remember listening to it all. It was very funny. I don't know. I love radio, man. I love it. I'm really sad that it's kind of just changing / going away, But in the chat now, there's some good memories of favorite radio stations I'm favorite. My dad ran the Dr. Demento show every Saturday night on his station. Oh, wow. That's cool, Heather Kennedy. Thank you for that. Pardon Me says, I grew up with Dr. Don Rose on KFRC. There you go. K-Earth in L.A. Super. Yeah, K-Earth in L.A. is really like a throwback. K-Earth now is changing. Well, first of all, they don't play any like that 50s. Like when I first got to Los Angeles, they played that old like doo-wop stuff, and because they're an oldies station. And so I'll tell you the truth, I don't love that doo-wop stuff. So like I didn't listen to it. I would punch in and out, but they've morphed, and as I've gotten older, now, the stuff that I think is an oldie is not that old, and to me.
What?
Anyway, my point is simply that they've changed. K-Earth is beginning to change. I don't really see them repping themselves as an oldie station anymore. They just play music, and I think they play a lot of, with the, the kind of classic rock and also pop, classic pop, I guess you'd call it. But Dave Morey from KFOG, fantastic radio voice, says, awesome. Oh, that folly. Wow. Yeah, all these great stuff. I can't believe KFOG went off the air. That was a big FM station in San Francisco. They were the kind of the...
Cumulus.
Yeah, Cumulus. Mark, I went way back with KGO, says Susan Roberts, and loved Ron Owens, but I'm so glad you are doing what you do. And you are successful with your show. Please keep up the good work. Yeah. Well, thank you, Susan Roberts. That's a
big shout out.
Big shout out to you. Yeah. Dr. Don Rose, still can't get Sacramento out of my head.
Sacramento
out of my head. Yeah, Illinois. It says Tom Graves. Thank you. Yeah, he was one of a kind. He had. Here's a quick thing, Dr. Rose. Then we're going to move on. So there's this guy, morning show guy in San Francisco, incredibly popular, Dr. Don Rose. Again, one of the biggest radio personalities in the country. So he had, I want to say, diabetes or something like that, and they had to amputate his leg, I think it was. And he would, it was a big story, as you can imagine. Local news covered it. Dr. Don Rose is getting his leg amputated, etc. And among the things that were plaguing him after the leg was amputated was this thing, and there must be I'm sure a technical term for it, but where the leg is gone, but you're still getting pain from the leg, like you're still registering. What is it called?
Phantom pain.
Phantom pain, exactly. So he had phantom pain in his leg, and when he was doing his show, it's 4 hours every morning, all of a sudden he'd be in the middle of something and he would scream like he was in pain. And it was that phantom pain. And it was just a wild aspect to that last chapter of his life there on KFRC. But he left KFRC, and KFRC changed format. Of course, what are they, a Spanish station now? What's on 640 a.m. in San Francisco?
I haven't flipped around the dial in a while.
Yeah, maybe somebody knows. But anyway, that is the story on National Radio Day. I didn't realize it was National Radio Day. And I have to say, Albert, I would have thought you'd be aware of that. Do you want to apologize? Because I feel as though you should have.
Would you like to apologize for what you've done?
I mean, Albert, let's be honest. You run this show. You have a tie to radio. I know you didn't come up in radio necessarily the way Kim and myself did. But I think you probably owe an apology to the audience, if I can say.
My words upset so many people.
It wasn't his words. It's the lack of his words that upset so many people. Yeah. I mean, you're supposed to keep track of stuff for us to talk about on the show, aren't you, Albert?
I mean, yeah.
Albert, thank you.
I thought we were going to have so many guests that we wouldn't have time to just talk about National Radio Day.
No, I'll tell you, it's...
this is no picnic, no summer camp.
All right. Time to... I thought we were going to have so many... okay. All right. I've got Dr. Daignault coming up in a couple of minutes, and we'll talk about a couple of things that are related to the new... Instead of vax, there is a new kind of flu vaccine. It's called Flu Mist. And I want to talk to him about it. It's an at-home nasal vaccine. It's the first time there's ever been a flu vaccine that you could administer, if you will, at home. I want to talk to him about the progress of that. Like, that comes onto the market at a time when all vaccines are going away because, it's all natural immunity and we're supposed to just do push-ups. Did you see how Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was on Fox the other night with, I want to say, there were a couple of, with Pete Hegseth and a couple of, they were doing push-ups together. They're doing push-ups, they're doing,
That's super manly. Wow, I'm so impressed.
This is from a guy who has KO'd a lot of the greatest science being done in this country and has, in reports on what's going on at the CDC and HHS, has turned it over to AI and produced reports that have made up, you can Google this. What I'm telling you is true. The reports offered by RFK Jr. cite 5 different studies that are completely fictitious. They didn't even exist. They were completely made up. That's who's running HHS. And he's busy on television doing push-ups and telling us about how, natural immunity, there it is, with Pete Hegseth. It's everything in this administration feels so performative while they continue to dismantle government and all the legitimate science that was being done at HHS and the CDC. It's just wrong. We'll talk to Dr. Daignault in a moment. Let's get a quick update from Kim. We'll do some news, and then Dr. Daignault next. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. The Jeffrey Epstein grand jury records will remain sealed. A judge denying the Justice Department's bid to get those records unsealed today. It led to Epstein being indicted on sex trafficking charges. Public interest in the case reignited after the Justice Department announced that Epstein did not have a client list and then confirmed the convicted sex offender's death was a suicide. Evidence that was seen and heard by grand juries is not allowed to be released without approval from a judge. Last month, President Trump ordered Attorney General Pam Bondi to get court approval to release that grand jury material.
Yeah, that was theater. It was never going to be released. He knew it was never going to be released. Bondi knew it was never going to be released. It was all just to kind of take care of the MAGA nation while they were demanding Epstein files. And so that was something that was the theater of what they're doing to address that Epstein file chant that comes, continuously day after day from MAGA Nation.
It was a C, so we were trying, right?
Exactly.
The Republican congressional redistricting plan could soon be up for a vote in the Texas State House. State lawmakers reconvening today after protests from Democrats saw them leave the state to break the quorum and delay the vote. The new map would create 5 more Republican-leaning districts. House Democrats placed under around-the-clock supervision of the Department of Public Safety by the House Speaker to ensure that they would return to the state capitol today. North Carolina under a state of emergency as Hurricane Erin, that's my sister's name, tracks nearly parallel with the U.S.
Your sister's name is Hurricane Erin?
Yeah, we like to call her that. Yeah, especially when she's moving fast.
Sure.
The outer bands of the Category 2 storm are expected to bring poor weather conditions to the North Carolina coast, where thousands of coastal residents have already been asked to leave. President Trump says he and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu are war heroes. Mark, did you know this? During an interview, the president referred to the prime minister as a good man who was fighting for Israel. Trump said he's a war hero because we work together. I guess I am too. He pointed to the United. This is a guy who, with the bone spur thing, who didn't go to, he's a war hero. Yeah, he pointed to the U.S. strikes against 3 Iranian nuclear facilities in June as an example of his war hero-ishness. A new policy update from the Trump administration says immigrants applying to enter the United States will now be screened for anti-American activity. A policy alert released this week by the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service said immigration officers may now consider whether applicants have endorsed, promoted, supported, or otherwise espoused the views of a terrorist organization or those who support, promote, anti-American ideologies. They didn't, though, offer a specific definition of what they consider to be anti-American.
Well, that's the beauty of it. They never have to actually define it. They just have to say that was an anti-American post. That gives them total freedom to keep anybody away from America that they want to keep away from America.
One person is hurt after a Washington, D.C. National Guard vehicle and a civilian car were involved in a crash. Happened about less than a mile from the Capitol. Both drivers taken to the hospital with minor injuries. And speaking of the takeover of Washington, D.C. and the National Guard stationed there now, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller is calling out protesters against the administration's takeover of D.C. Miller says the administration is going to ignore what he called elderly, stupid white hippies who are protesting the federal crackdown since they're not part of the city. His comment came during a visit to Union Station, where he, along with Vice President Vance and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, met with National Guard troops who've been stationed outside that transportation hub.
Did you see that J.D. Vance got booed, I think, as he tried to visit some of the troops there in Washington, D.C.? Yeah,
a little bit of a rough visit this morning. Maybe not their best moment. President Trump is calling for a Federal Reserve governor to step down. This happened in a post on Truth Social, where most presidential things happen. Trump said Lisa Cook must resign now. Comes after the director of U.S. Federal Housing Finance Agency, William Pulte, alleged Cook may have committed mortgage fraud in a letter sent to Attorney General Pam Bondi. Pulte calling the letter a criminal referral and asking the DOJ to review the matter. Cook has a permanent vote on the Fed's rate-setting committee.
This is an attempt to push somebody off the, I don't know the details of this, so we'll find out the mortgage thing, but this is clearly an attempt to push people off of the Fed board. I mean, this administration, there's no sleight of hand. It is right up there, center stage. You can see it. So, and he's going to try to go after Powell also. It may be a warning shot to Powell, the Fed chair. Hey, dude, we can do this to you too. We can come after you. I can begin investigations against you. You will give me what I want, which is lower rates, or the other thing I want, which is for you to step down.
An Iowa man is going to be spending 4 months in federal prison after racking up $140,000 in company credit card charges on Pokemon cards and gaming items. You're going to spend your money on something.
Albert, that's not,
The Justice Department says 34-year-old Mitch William Gross used his company's credit cards for his personal shopping sprees between September of 2021 and October of 2022. He was working for Ruan Transportation Corporation at the time and apparently is now accused of using falsified receipts to cover up those purchases.
I mean, you can't put your own money in that stuff.
No.
You don't want to spend your own money on that kind of
I'm
thing.
bad.
So,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, why not spend the company money?
Scientists have found another moon orbiting Uranus. The new moon, found by a team from Colorado using NASA's James Webb Space Telescope. They say this tiny moon is only about 6 miles in diameter, which made it undetectable to other telescopes. It is the 29th moon, 29th, discovered orbiting Uranus, and it doesn't have a name yet. So for now, it's being called S2025 U1.
Apparently that has a nice ring to it.
Yeah, why not?
It sounds like it could be Elon's kid. Maybe that's
that's right.
Exactly.
Kid number 19 could be named that. Yeah.
The doctor is here, by the way. Just
I know. I'm
going to
get it. I don't like to. I leave the doctor waiting in the waiting room the way I have to wait for the doctor in the waiting room when I go visit him.
That's not very nice.
Yeah.
No.
Right. Yeah.
They say, by the way, that it takes 2 hours to walk around this moon. Not that anyone's tried it, but that's how long it would take.
So it's a tiny moon.
It's a tiny little moon, a 2-hour walk. This report sponsored
it's not about size, okay? I just want to make that clear.
Size matters?
I'm just saying it's small. Okay, that's a small moon.
With your iron rod.
Exactly. All right. Yeah.
This report sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com.
Mm-hmm.
It is so good. The tea,
I'm having it right now
amazing.
Before I see the doctor.
Get a little lion's mane in your, get your mental clarity going. There's the lion's mane coffee. The turmeric chai tea has lion's mane as well. Yeah, the Clarity Blend coffee. So good. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. The website has all kinds of tasting notes. You know exactly what you're getting. And please take advantage of the Mark Thompson Show exclusive discount. You get 10% off by typing in Mark T, no spaces, at in the little code box at checkout. Mark T is the special code.
Yeah, you get 10% off anything.
Mm-hmm.
Put every.
Which one do you use, Mark Thompson?
Yeah,
right.
Mark T. You will enjoy the experience that the rest of us are enjoying.
So load up that gargantuan cart and get moving.
Good stuff.
This is Kim McAllister on the Mark Thompson Show.
Kim, well done. Thank you. Yeah. Doctor's next.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Feels great.
When they raided Mar-a-Lago, God didn't like that.
Right on, everybody. We are a live show. It's great to have you jump in with us. We're live on YouTube from 11 to 1 in the West, from 2 to 4 in the East, and wherever you come from and however you take us in. So cool to have you on board. We then have this show here on YouTube. You can watch it or listen to it anytime. And then, of course, there's an audio podcast across the iHeartRadio network, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, etc. So I'm so excited to have this guy in, and he's a real doctor, MD, board-certified ER doctor in Los Angeles, studied global health at Georgetown University, has a medical degree from Ben Gurion University, got his residency training in emergency medicine at Lincoln Medical Center in the South Bronx, baby. Yeah, that's where the real tough cases came in. Also a former United States Peace Corps volunteer. He's just the best. Dr. Michael Daignault, everyone. Thank you for scrubbing down for today's show. I appreciate it. Wow, there's a lot of stuff happening. I was talking about RFK Jr. before and how he was on television the other day doing push-ups alongside Pete Hegseth. I also talked about the fact that in producing these reports that he has to produce as head of the HHS, the reports cited a bunch of stuff that were clearly run through AI that involved studies that were completely fictitious. So this is the kind of thing that's going on there at HHS with this RFK Jr., who's in charge of so much and really dismantling that agency in so many ways. So we get to the COVID vaccines and a huge break from what are the normal recommendations for infants on a vaccine schedule, et cetera, to what the medical community, pediatric medicine community is recommending, and then what the government, now run by RFK Jr., anti-vaxxer, is recommending. Can you speak to what's happening here in that announcement?
Well, first of all, I'm glad you brought up the fitness videos that they were doing with RFK Jr. and Hesketh. I mean, it's great to see, people working out and exercising, but it's a good reminder that just because you can do 100 pull-ups or 100 push-ups doesn't necessarily mean that you can make the best medical recommendations for our country. So let's just get that right out there. So the big breaking news, as you mentioned, this is the first time in 3 decades I heard that the American Academy of Pediatrics is going against the CDC recommendation on a vaccine. And it's for the COVID vaccine, and the recommendation is for infants from 6 months to 2 years. So just to backtrack, earlier in the summer, RFK fired the entire clinical advisory committee on vaccines, and that included a lot of pediatricians and members of the American Academy of Pediatrics. And he replaced them with, members who, for the most part, are anti-vax and spread a lot of disinformation about vaccine safety. And so what the CDC currently had recommended, they don't recommend the COVID vaccine, the new one, for infants from 6 months to 2 years. They use language like, well, it's a shared decision-making between the kids, the parents, and the pediatricians. But what the American Academy of Pediatrics did yesterday was firmly recommended the COVID vaccine as part of the childhood immunization schedule for infants from 6 months to 2 years. And the main reason for this is because those infants don't have a fully developed immune system. As doctors, as medical professionals, we think it is best for kids that their first exposure to COVID should safely be from the vaccine, not from an infection. And, we've seen time and again, like infants that come to the ER with COVID are very sick. I mean, as we're still seeing a lot of COVID cases in the ER in general among adults, but for the most part, everybody goes home because it's an upper respiratory infection. They're not hypoxic. They don't need to be hospitalized. And that's because the majority of us have hybrid immunity already from the last few years. We've gotten 1 or 2 doses of the vaccine. We've gotten 1 or 2 infections possibly. So we have that broad spectrum immunity against repeat infections that we don't get super sick. But for the infants, it's just not worth the risk that their first exposure is going to be from the COVID virus itself. And so that's why the AAP and their thousands of members came out and said, you know what, we are going to go against what the CDC says, and we recommend this vaccine for infants.
One of the things about COVID that is truly disturbing to me is not just the upper respiratory thing and not just the inflammatory aspects of it that are just still being understood. Right. But what I remember reading early on in the first year of COVID, and that was the prevalence of long COVID. And now I've subsequently read a bunch of stuff more about the prevalence of long COVID, and it's even more prevalent than was originally thought. Mm-hmm. And it can be even more debilitating than originally thought. And so when you put up those pictures of the infants and we talk about the infant exposure to COVID, I think of the lasting impact of COVID, that it's not just a cough and an upper respiratory thing, that the effects of having COVID-19 and the latest mutations even could be devastating for a lifetime.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think the take-home message for people is that when we've studied the effects of long COVID, those who are vaccinated have a significantly less chance of developing long COVID complications than those who are not. So that's the take-home message right there.
Wow, that's huge. Absolutely huge. And the other thing that I wanted to ask you about just on vaccines is this flu mist. Is that what it's called? It's an at-home nasal vaccine.
Yeah, I am particularly excited about this. So this is from AstraZeneca. It's a needle-free nasal vaccine. So basically for the flu. And this is the first time ever in our history that people now have this availability to use this at home. And basically it had been approved for a number of years. Like you could get it through your doctor's office, but now basically you go to the AstraZeneca website, you fill out a short questionnaire, and they send you the vaccine in a cold storage. It lasts for a couple months, and it's basically a spritz in each nostril, and you're done. It's for people 2 to 49 only, healthy individuals from 2 to 49, because we found that it wasn't as effective for those over 49, just because the immune system tends to be not as strong, and so you need the traditional intramuscular flu vaccine shot. But after last year, where we had 82 million cases and 1.3 million hospitalizations, and only half of adults and kids got the flu shot last year, it wreaked havoc through the ER for sure. And so I'm hoping that with this option now where you can order it, your insurance covers it, I think it's only a $9 shipping fee, it gets sent to your house, more people will do this. And I think, the intranasal vaccine is the future of vaccine technology, just because if you think about upper respiratory infections, when you first get infected with the cold or the flu, it gets into your nasal passages, your upper airway, and then spreads to your lungs. So why don't we spray the vaccine right in the nose and spawn those protective immune cells that'll protect us right in that area, like straight off the bat? I mean, I think that's the way to go. So hopefully we'll see a bigger uptake of people using the vaccine this year for the flu.
The flu vaccine, which is tweaked every year, is
right.
What degree of effectiveness? I've always heard it's kind of 50-50. I always get it, but I always hear that it's 50-50.
Yeah. So just to remind people that the way the flu vaccine is designed is not to 100% say that if you get the flu shot, you're not going to get the flu. For the most part, it could do that, but it also just prevents severe illness, hospitalization, keeps you out of the hospital, keeps you from dying. I mean, flu can still kill you in some cases. And so, but you're right. Yeah. Every year we look at the current strains around the world and start in the Southern Hemisphere. And then for the Northern Hemisphere, we design a flu shot that's going to include what scientists think are the most likely going to be the prevalent strains. And so it's a little bit of a guess, but it's based on epidemiological data and what's happened in the Southern Hemisphere, which experiences their flu season before us. Right. So it ranges, it's about 40% plus protection against severe disease. So
and is it still being done, or what's happening? What's the future of the flu vaccine with this new administration?
Yeah, so I think we may have touched on this briefly a few months ago. They originally RFK wasn't going to have the meeting with the Chronicle, with the scientific advisors to decide what was going to be in the flu shot, for which ones we were going to choose to order from pharmaceutical companies. But they ended up doing like a closed door session and basically just agreed with what WHO and the rest of the Western world was deciding. So they kind of, said they weren't going to do it and sort of like cast doubt on the whole thing, and then ended up doing it anyway. So
interesting.
Yeah.
So it's happening then, and you'd recommend it, is the point.
And just one final point. Now we know that the flu always takes off between Halloween and Thanksgiving. That's usually in the ER. We start seeing a lot of cases. So we want people to be vaccinated like 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, because, with all the travel and being in the airport, you're going to be at pretty high risk. So if you do qualify for FluMist from AstraZeneca, I would recommend, and it has a 2-month shelf life in your fridge. So if you order it around like, September the latest, and then you'll have it in just one spray each side of the nose, just after Halloween, I think you'd be well protected.
Gordon in our chat says, have not had flu or COVID. That's pretty extraordinary, I think. I mean, most people, although I know a couple of people kind of think of it who haven't contracted
There's
COVID.
never been anything like this.
Yeah, I mean, at least outward symptoms of it, So I guess it's there. I don't know. Everything's just, it's sort of very specific to who you are, I suppose. I don't know.
Where you had it and you just didn't know.
Right, that's the point. You weren't manifesting any outward symptoms. All right, before I let you go, I'd always heard for a long time that aspirin, a daily aspirin is something that will help prevent heart disease, I think it was related to heart disease, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
even a baby aspirin, I'd heard. Yeah, go ahead. What's the truth?
Yeah, a lot of people, take a daily aspirin. Like daily aspirin keeps the doctor away, and and I still encounter a lot of patients in the ER who do that. But in 2024, the U.S. Preventative Services Task Force, the same task force that RFK wants to gut, came out with a recommendation on aspirin that is more tailored to specific risk factors. So instead of saying, this is for prevention of your first heart attack, okay? So if you've already had a heart attack, you've already had take a daily aspirin anyway. But for people that have not had a heart attack, it's very specific now. So from the ages of 40 to 59, if you have risk factors for heart attack, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, family history of sudden cardiac death, then in shared decision-making with your doctor, you can decide whether or not you should take a daily aspirin to prevent that first heart attack. But if you're 60 plus, they don't just clearly recommend that you take the aspirin because the risk of adverse events from aspirin, predominantly upper GI stomach bleeding, for example, outweighs the benefit. So it's very nuanced now. You just got to have that discussion with your doctor. If you're in that age range, 40 to 59, what are my risk factors for having that first heart attack? Should I take aspirin or not? So the take-home point is, if you're taking a daily aspirin, maybe don't, and have that conversation with your doctor first.
Yeah, it makes total sense. Well, I feel as though we've been completely checked out, everybody. Gordon says, yes, my doctor told me to stop taking aspirin. Gordon is on top of things today. He's the guy who has not had the flu or COVID, and he's not on the aspirin train either. Wow.
He's living the dream.
Gail says, I haven't had COVID or flu, always getting vaccinated. My 47-year-old wouldn't get vaccines. He died in 2020, 3 weeks after contracting COVID. Wow, that's a cautionary tale, man. How sad. I'm sorry. Wow. I love talking to the doctor. Thank you for being here. I appreciate this. I think this is covered in general by my copay. And so I'll let you go back to your patients there in the ER. You can find Dr. Michael Daignault on Fox 11 in Los Angeles and on iHeartRadio. I think you're going to be on the radio with me. When is it? Today or tomorrow? Tomorrow, right? Tomorrow.
Yep.
Yeah,
at
tomorrow.
4:30, right?
Yeah, 4:30 on KFI Radio in Los Angeles. Love talking to you, and I really appreciate you making time for us. Thank you.
My pleasure, Mark. Take care.
All right. Dr. Michael Daignault. Bravo. Right on. Right on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Now, we have a lot of people, I mean, in the chat, a lot of people who are vaxxed or planning to be vaxxed, flu vaccines. Somebody getting that shingles vaccine, then they're getting the flu vaccine. Ole Hansen says a sharp alcoholic drink each day also acts as a blood thinner and is healthy if not overdone. I don't think that's
I don't
true.
think Dr. Daignault is going to stand behind that one.
I don't think Dr. Daignault
I'd be willing to bet my lunch that there's alcohol involved.
Oh, yes, and you'll check the literature. They recommend a sharp alcoholic drink each day.
You know, a bite of dark chocolate, a sip of red wine, and you're good to go.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Look, I'm all for it, but don't, jack yourself into thinking that matters. I've got to get this shingles vaccine, and I've got to get there are a trio of vaccines I need. pneumonia, RSV. That's a real thing, RSV, and you should get it. If you're an older boy or girl, you should get it.
My son had RSV as a toddler, and it was horrible.
Yeah.
That was before the vaccine was available.
Yeah. And then, of course, that shingles vaccine. And look at Leslie says shingles can kill you. Comes out of weak places in your body. I feel like I'm driving one big weak place in my body. But I'll tell you one thing. I don't look this color. This color, my skin on this camera, it drives me nuts. So we're working with it. But it is, I am not this truly.
Oh, girl, baby girl. Don't even play.
I mean, really, I look ghost white. And so I promise you, not that it matters.
Nothing.
I don't have this natural pallor, this cadaverous pallor.
They haven't come out with a pasty vaccine, you know?
Yeah, thank you. That would a pasty vaccine is what I need. Exactly.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Well, I am excited about Belinda, who comes in minutes with It's the Planet Stupid. Before I get to Belinda, I did want to follow up. I promised you that on the DC takeover, I would give you at least that one story about J.D. Vance as he goes down to talk to the troops now. The troops are in the streets, you know. They've been deployed in this overwhelming show of force. And Vice President J.D. Vance taking time out of vacationing and plotting for taking over the presidency after Trump thanked National Guard troops for making D.C.'s Union Station there, the train station, safe from vagrants, as he put it. It was an event highlighting the takeover of Washington, D.C. He was there with Pete Hegseth and Stephen Miller, but they were heckled. Free D.C., they yelled. There it is. Such a pretty train station, man.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. When I was a kid, it wasn't that pretty. But
I love that.
You think that was the reaction to, like, oh, wow, this place is really beautiful. Oh, they're coming out. Boo.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. Those guys can't go anywhere without a chorus of boos following them.
Man, they are not popular. That is for sure. We showed you the Elise Stefanik stuff the other day where she was on the cabinet. She wants to be governor of New York, and she can't even get a campaign speech out. And people are so bent on jamming her buzz because she's a Trumpy. She's a big Trumpy. So Trump calling on the Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook to resign. Again, Kim had that story, and as I told you then, but I'll just make the point. I think there are two things going on. He obviously really wants the resignation of Lisa Cook. They're going to try to, I think, we'll find out whether they're concocting or whether there really is some sort of irregularity in the mortgages that she has. But more to the point, he's sending a message, which is, I'll turn my Justice Department and my thugs on you, Jerome Powell. You will play by my rules, you'll play by what I want, or you will step down, or you'll suffer the same fate. I think that is the implicit warning. So, Elon Musk has put the brakes on the new political party. He was planning on...
What?
Yeah.
The America Party is a no-go?
Yeah.
Oh.
He's quietly stopping his plan for the new political party. He says he wants to focus on his companies.
What the hell is going on in the United States of America?
He was in a public dispute with President Donald Trump on the tax cut and spending bill, that big bill that Trump talks about. And now he's recently been focusing on maintaining ties with J.D. Vance, because J.D. Vance is someone who comes out of that world of tech bros, those tech billionaires. Peter Thiel essentially created J.D. Vance, put him into the Senate, throwing him into a senatorial race that close to $8 million was spent to vault Vance ahead of any competitor in the field and into the Senate. And from there, of course, Vance now just a heartbeat away from the presidency. So anyway, Musk is saying that Vance is the relationship he's most concerned with maintaining. And he's saying that if Vance decides to run for Congress, run for a president, he may throw some of his economic resources in behind J.D. Vance. So
does that mean that Vance is the anointed runner-up to Donald Trump and the next MAGA guy?
Well, anointed by Elon Musk,
yeah,
to that extent. Yeah. Mississippi has been ordered to redraw its Supreme Court electoral map after a federal judge ruled the map dilutes the power of what constituency? Black voters in Mississippi. Yes, exactly. The map was enacted in 1987. It violates the Voting Rights Act, cannot be used in future elections, says U.S. District Judge Charlotte Aycock. And the Mississippi branch of the ACLU litigated the lawsuit, and this is a legal win and a correction of a wrong. So there's that as well. And finally, there is this. Donald Trump bought more than $100 million in bonds since January. Yeah. These are corporate and municipal bonds, okay? They're not like U.S. savings bonds, all right? So
I thought he was the one that was all like aggro over Congress people making money off of stocks and everything else. No?
Yes, he does talk that talk, but he doesn't walk that walk. And the other thing I just was going to say is there's a great New Yorker piece right now that follows, and it's pretty fair to Trump, actually. It's not like an assault piece. And it follows all the money the Trump family has made off the presidency and ascending to power. And it's pretty great. The author of that piece, the reporter on that piece, we're going to have on the show next week, I hope so. But in any case, I'll talk about it in the next couple of days. But he's purchased at least $103 million worth of corporate and municipal bonds since taking office in January. And again, the active trading by a president of the United States is unprecedented, and it's put him in a direct position to benefit if any of these companies that he's got a bond purchase with succeed or fail. So you see all of these transactions that he's made, and he has a vested interest, of course, in the success of all of that.
Is it not against the law? Isn't that against? It should be against the law. If it's not,
it's not against the law for the president.
Oh,
which is wild, and it's not against the law. Well, the laws are very generous, even on, as we know, members of Congress. And we have a story we'll do tomorrow about a questionable stock purchase by a member of Congress. There are all sorts of stock transactions that really test those ethics. But and a lot of these bonds have to do, they're muni bonds. He buys a piece of the Triborough Bridge bonds. And I mean, he's literally buying these bonds that have to do with hospital facilities and airports and regional development and this kind of thing. And remember, as president of the United States, he has control over that stuff. So it's more than just a bad look. It's really, it's unprecedented. And honestly, it pales in comparison to the rest of the corruption that's going on in that administration. Sorry to say, dear leader is not looking very healthy at all, James Watson. I think the tech bros are just waiting for him to expire. Yeah, they could be, the buzzards circling the soon-to-be corpse.
They saw him stumbling down the red carpet and thought, okay,
yeah, got
to line it up.
Jeanette asks, quickly before I get to Belinda, Jeanette asks, Mark, any update on ETA, the Election Truth Alliance? Found your show on March 1st when you first had him on. Yes, you'll appreciate this, Jeanette. And everyone who is a fan of Election Truth Alliance, and Nathan, he will be joining us Friday. Yeah. Friday morning, right out of the chute. We'll get Nathan on. So that's your update. Yeah, and we'll talk about mail-in ballots and the embattled nature of mail-in ballots now, and we'll get to all of that on Friday. It's a big Friday show, but this show is not over today. I want to get to one of my favorite segments.
Mark Thompson Show.
Once a week, we talk about the planet. We talk about the environment. We do it in a segment we call It's the Planet, Stupid.
the planet Earth.
Some call me nature.
I am very passionate about the planet
Earth.
A living, breathing planet capable of sustaining whatever life forms we see fit to deposit on it.
Spock, judging by the pollution content of the atmosphere, I believe we have arrived.
It's the planet stupid.
No, it's the planet stupid.
Our guide for It's the Planet Stupid is eco-journalist Belinda Waymouth. Hi, Belinda. How are you?
Morning. I am well, thank you. How are you doing?
I am well, thank you.
Okay.
And now with the pleasantries disposed of, let's get right into the nasty.
Yeah, we have to start nasty, I'm afraid, today. Sorry, everyone.
Yeah, I mean, this Forest Service story, I saw this story, and it's heartbreaking. These are heroic members of firefighting forces that are exposed to a horrible circumstance with the smoke inhalation.
Yeah, it's awful.
So tell me what the latest is, please.
Okay, so the big story is what's happening to firefighters who are fighting wildfires. And so this is, we've got the Forestry Service who has for years absolutely ignored even their own research that says we're putting these guys at risk. In fact, they won't let the guys on the front lines wear any kind of mask. They wear bandanas and they're dying and they're getting these horrible cancers. And what's wild is I just was talking to a regular, an urban firefighter the other day, and he was saying, we're dying of, cardiovascular disease and cancers. And then not long afterwards, I was talking to another firefighter, and he said, for firefighters right now who are wearing protective, flame retardant gear, the young firefighters are getting testicular cancer because the flame retardant is made up of PFAS, which, as we know, forever chemicals, super toxic, awful, and it's right against their bodies. So that's on the one hand. So I was talking to firefighters about that, and then comes this story about all these unprotected firefighters who aren't wearing masks. Yes, they have flame retardant gear on, but they don't have anything over their faces. And the stories, and there are guys who, just from the fires that we had in January, here in Altadena, in Malibu, in the Pacific Palisades, which I went and saw the other day for the first time. I sort of said, okay, I'm ready to go see it. And, it's a wasteland. It's terrible. But when you think that these young guys are up there, and it's men and women, it's not just men who are doing it. And we've got about 40,000 of these firefighters who fight wildfires, nationwide. It used to be more of a part-time job. I'm just going to give sort of all the context. And if I get too out there, Mark, just ask me a question to bring me back in, because it's pretty overwhelming. So you've got a hard hat on, but you have nothing over your face. And what we knew back in 1988 when there was a month-long wildfire in Yellowstone National Park, and there were thousands of firefighters, and hundreds of them got sick because it was a month-long fire, and they work crazy shifts. They can work for 24 hours straight. They work for 2 weeks straight. They get to rest basically in the dirt. They don't even get taken to a hotel where there's air conditioning and filtered air so that their bodies can in some way sort of recover from what they've just been doing, because they're building lines which are fireproof. So they're digging up and burning all the stuff that's flammable in those lines to make sure that a fire can't jump it. There are flames that are, skyscraper high. And what we also now know about wood fire, because we used to think that fire smoke that came from burning trees was completely benign. Well, it's not. There are 31 known carcinogens just in that. And when you're dealing with a forest fire, you're also standing where fungi is burning. There was a story of one firefighter who was in an area where there was all this poison oak, and the damage that the smoke from the burning poison oak did to his lungs. So we know it's bad. We know that wood smoke is bad. We know that it's a carcinogen, that it can give us lung cancer, just like smoking cigarettes. But the thing now about these wildfires is, we know obviously that they're not just in a remote area where there's a forest. Because of climate change, because of the strength of the wind, how hot and dry our forests are now, how elongated the actual fire season is, these workers are being exposed, for these hugely long periods. And the Forestry Service has a handbook, and in it they do talk about, fire, the smoke is, dangerous, but they don't tell these firefighters what the long-term risks are, even though their own research and other research for the last, decade and a half has been, 2 decades and a half more, has been telling them this is not okay. So you look at the smoke that's behind this guy, and you see how thick it is. So it's filled with particulate pollution. And we know that gets into our lungs, into our bloodstreams, and that it's full of toxicants. And the other thing about the wildfires, as I was just sort of getting to, but there's so much here to unpack, it's sort of overwhelming a little bit. It's not just the fires, it's not just the trees that are burning, it's also all the human structures that are now burning, and what happened in the Palisades fire in Altadena. And we know that anything that's, human-made, man-made, is full of plastic. And so the smoke is so toxic. They said that the firefighters who fought in January, they said the smoke was so black and so thick that from the Palisades, which is just within, a mile of you couldn't see the ocean. That's how thick the smoke was. And firefighters, because of how thick the smoke is, they're having to use, I call them a torch, but man, I forgot.
Flashlight, yeah, some kind of light, right, just to see, right. And I just want to mention that in other countries, because these wildfire seasons continue in Canada and Australia and Greece, they hand out half-face respirator masks, and they have replaceable filters on those masks.
Yeah.
So, like you'd see from a painter or a demolition team, they're all, they block about 99% of the toxic particles in smoke.
Yeah.
And
yes.
But the Forest Service sends their crews in with nothing, and so there's nothing to filter out these poisons you're talking about.
Yeah, and what they've worked out, that a little N95 can also do what those half-face respirators do. They're incredibly efficient. There are leaders of crews. There's this one woman who in January, when she saw her guys, vomiting, dizzy, coughing up black goo, she was like, she went on Amazon and got them, N95s. But the fact that our Forestry Service is saying, they're saying things like, the cost and that they say there would be a 20% reduction in work time, because you'd be dealing with these masks, which firefighters also, and I do have to point this out, there's been this real sort of machismo, we don't wear anything, we're superheroes, we go in, we do the tough jobs no one else wants to do. There is that as well that you're contending with. But now, of course, what young firefighters who want to wear the masks, they can get ridiculed by their older, colleagues going, what are you, wearing a mask? That's ridiculous. But to have this culture where because they also believe that their bosses are going to, are taking care of them and wouldn't put them in these dangerous situations. And yes, in Canada, Australia, Greece, where they have these terrible wildfires, they are, wearing masks. And what we learned in 9/11, when we had the World Trade Center bombing, is that the workers who then also eschewed wearing masks, who said, no, we don't need them, we're going in to save people, and that it's cumbersome, and the respirator is hard to work with, they wouldn't wear them, and within, a year they were dying by their hundreds. So the Forestry Service, to negate the danger, to not allow in their handbooks even mention of the long-term effects. There's one guy who's been creating videos. He's a former firefighter. He knows how dangerous it is. He now works for the Forestry Service. He does research into the long-term damage that this smoke inhalation is doing to these firefighters. They won't let him put in his videos, that they're going, that they could get non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. They can get, they're ending up needing lung transplants at 41 years old. They're ending up at 38 years old, no longer able to work. They are being retired for health reasons. And then you've got this awful thing that happened in 2022. Congress passed this law where firefighters didn't have to prove the connection between their work and the horrible cancer that they had, or the horrible cardiovascular, or the heart attacks they were having, or the strokes. And then, of course, in comes the Trump administration and says, no, we're going to, underfund, defund, de-staff that department. So now you've got these poor firefighters who've got to sort of source these documents to fill in, to prove it. And, you've got an administration that also wants to do away with all workplace safety regulation because that gets in the way of the owner's profit. I mean, and the thing that's, there's the naivete on the behalf of, these firefighters, some of whom, Mark, they get out of high school, they get 5 days of training, and they start fighting fires for $15 an hour with absolutely no clue of the danger that they're about to do to themselves and how quickly it's going to happen. I mean, in the New York Times story on Sunday, one of the firefighters who's now fighting for his life and self-funding his second round of chemo, he was in the January fires here. I point to them because Pacific Palisades is behind me. And he said recently when he was watching video of his friends fighting the Guildford fires, which have just been here, and when he saw the plumes of black smoke that they were contending with no protection, he said it's not heroic to him anymore. It's not, oh, look at the glory, look at those guys and what they're doing. It's horrific because he's paying the price, and he knows the price that his friends could be, soon paying also. So I have to say, as a person who, as you well know, and some of our listeners will too, is in recovery from a toxic related fire. Yeah, this just hurts my heart to see them with, a helmet on. Do you know that one of the things that the Forestry Service used as an excuse for not giving them respirators? They're already carrying 50 pounds of gear on their back. Why would we give them any more?
Well, they also say that, it gets in the way of their ability to, fight the fire and see, and with the heat and all that. I mean, there's like more obfuscation and craziness around this. It's just, it's an insult. And as I say, that's why I mention what's happening in other countries, because you can say, they got fires, record fires in all those other countries I mentioned, and they seem to have a good plan by giving their firefighters a lot of these protections that you're talking about. So we know that it doesn't get in the way of firefighting elsewhere, So in Greece, Canada, Australia, go to all those places and you can see that they're able actually to, to fight the fires quite effectively with those respiratory protections that we're talking about.
Yeah, and then live to tell the tale. We're killing our firefighters. I mean, it's really, this is criminal. This is really criminal.
It is awful, and I'm hoping that was a big piece in conversations like this one, and if it gets enough into the zeitgeist, maybe there will be some changes. Albert, it reminds me of in hockey, they used to, no one wore masks, no one wore headgear. I mean, hockey had the same thing where there's sort of this machismo associated with it, right, Albert? Isn't that right?
Even the goaltenders, no mask, and you'd think that they would be wearing masks. And actually, now in hockey, they're requiring visors. So if you've already been grandfathered in, no visor, you could still go no visor, but everyone is mandated a visor, and they're even adding neck guards. So I think there's more protections coming.
Yeah, and I used sports as a parallel in this case only because you had that same sort of sense of this is the way we've always done it. If you're tough, you get in there, you don't need anything. But now the younger generation realizes, no, it's just stupid not to have any respiratory protection. It's just stupid not to have any guard over my face in some way, in the case of the hockey player. So anyway, I look to that as instructive and hope that changes will be made. Now we're way behind. I really still want to get to some other stories, and I want to talk about. Can you? I'll leave it to you. You can go. Okay. But we need to do it quickly, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to tell you two quick things, and we'll leave the truck bed nuclear reactors to next time because that's interesting, and I know people are interested in nuclear. So 2 good news stories, everyone. So I'm really into Free the Bears, the organization that I encountered when I was in Laos last year. They've just freed 3 more baby cubs. So this year, a total of 15 bears have been saved and are now, in safe captivity and being looked after. And if you want to support them, you can buy their calendar, you can give them a little bit of money, but it's really, that's one that really gets me in the heart. But it's working, and it's amazing, and
and these are bears that were used for bile.
It's a ghastly industry. It's completely cruel. It's ridiculous because they don't, the bear bile doesn't do all the things they say it does. But unfortunately, in a lot of Asian countries, they believe in it, and these guys are raising awareness, and it's amazing. But the other thing that I think is really interesting, and if you could show one of the pictures from it, of this balcony solar. So I really want our audience to know about this, because this is amazing. The only state in the US so far that is saying, yes, this is legal, you could do it, is Utah. But in Germany, they've got apartment dwellers. So there are 53 million households in the US where you live in an apartment and you're like, we can't get solar unless the building owners put it on the roof. Well, guess what, people? Now you can, because there are these incredible plug-in solar panels. You just need the solar panel. They have an inverter, so you take the direct voltage that you're getting from your photovoltaic panel that you've put out on your balcony. There they are, and you put it through the inverter, and you just plug the system into your wall, and you can be powering your fridge. So on a cloudy day, you can power one fridge, but on a sunny day, if you have 4 of these panels, you can do all your household appliances, and it's revolutionary. So in Germany, they have 4 million of these panels. They think about it's equivalent to several coal-fired or regular power plants. So people are taking this into their own hands. If you live in a state like California, you can get state funding. The panels cost a couple of $100s. They're super easy to install. You can sort of put them anywhere. And I really love this decentralized renewable energy revolution that you can be part of. And I'll put the story up on my socials so you can see. I think they're called Zoltux, the company that's here in the US that's doing it. There are several companies that are doing it because it's just so the way to go. And
solar energy is just so the way to go.
It's like it's right outside, and it's it powers everything. It's how we.
But
have
I would
plants,
say
how we have
that
food.
Germany doesn't quite have the solar solar availability. It's kind of an odd example. I mean, even the picture is a guy on a cloudy day.
But this is the thing: if you have 4 of them on a cloudy day, you can power your refrigerator. Now, refrigerators are real energy sucks. They use a lot of power. So that's on a cloudy day, and then on a sunny day, everything in your house, and you're going to save money. You're going to have cleaner air to breathe. It's just a win-win. And I think also, when we have governments not doing things that are in our interest, the fact that we can take back the power and we can do something that is in our own interests, and we can do it on our own balconies, I think, power to the people. And, if you had the inclination before, or you were interested in solar, now is the moment, because there it is.
There's never been anything like this.
Yeah.
Mister, we're coming for you, and your anti-solar, stance. Yeah, I think it's cool.
You talk about the power required by a refrigerator, and you're married to one of the funniest people, who's an incredibly talented stand-up comic named Jake Johansson.
Yep.
And he used to do a bit, and I'll bet he may not even remember this bit anymore. It was one of my favorites, was when he called the power company. I don't even know if he tells it like it's really happened. I don't know if it did or not.
Yeah. No, it did.
Yeah. Okay. He calls the power company because he's got this bill that's incredibly high, and they say, have you checked your refrigerator to make sure that you've closed the refrigerator doors?
Yeah.
And I mean, they kind of obsess about the refrigerator and how he must have the refrigerator doors open. And Jake does this great run on. He said, "Oh no, that's how I actually instead of air conditioning, I have 14 different refrigerators, and I just have all the doors open all the time." So you think that might be? I mean, it's something like that. I'm screwing his bit up, but it's really funny. And
Well, the thing that he was noticing, in town, out of town, his power bill was always the same, no matter what he was, and he was, when he was on the road, he was out of town half the time, I remember the fridge.
It's a funny bit. Anyway, tell him that I still recall it. Look, I love talking to you. I really do want to talk about that nuclear next week.
super
You know, the nuclear reactors that fit on a flatbed truck. Let's talk about that next Wednesday. It's a date. You can find Belinda Waymouth across social media. Waymouth is Waymouth. Thank you. So appreciate you being here every week.
My pleasure. Okay,
all right,
bye-bye.
Belinda Waymouth, everyone. That's It's the Planet Stupid for today.
More
It's the Planet Stupid.
No, it's the planet, stupid.
next time, only on The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
We're wrapping up. We are wrapping up. Tom says we have solar panels, an electric car. It generates more electricity than we use. Our bill is $10 a month for the hookup service fee. Wow. I'd love to see some pictures of Tom's place. Pretty amazing.
Has Tom gotten the flu or COVID either? Is he on that list?
That was great. I love that. Very, very well done. You know, Albert, I want to say you've had COVID only once. Am I wrong?
Oh, no. I actually wanted to butt in. No COVID yet.
What?
Wow.
I think I might have gotten it right before because I was sick before it, but I never contracted anything. And I was taking, when we were at KGI, I was taking BART from the East Bay. So I was public
you were in
transportation.
crowded congregate settings almost all the time. And
I'm in airports all the time now. And it's, I'm.
Yeah. Albert's
dodged it.
other main hustle is a congregate setting too. You know who I'm reporting this to is Dr. Emil
Schaffhausen.
I think he might want a blood test or something. You're one of a kind.
Albert has youth and vitality on his side, though.
He does. He does have youth and vitality. Yeah.
He still maintains the fresh face.
He does. He doesn't have to worry about like overexerting for his job because he's always just kind of, just barely showing up. And that will
and I'm getting chirped by Luis here, who is a Dodgers fan.
I defend the commish, says Luis. Don't ask him to betray his core belief of mediocrity and a low bar that his 61-64 Giants have also embraced. Oh, 61 and 60. Yeah, that's their record this season. I get it. I'm sorry. Happy National Radio Day. Yeah, Luis is truly working you over. The Giants, it's done. This season, I feel for them.
It's not looking good, but you know what? You have to earn. You have to earn your spot to have the bar low. You need to get your foot in the door, just like how I make it. I make it to a place, and I set the standard low. We made it with the 3 World Series, and we're just happy that we got those, and we're still working towards it. But
yeah, you can't
happy with the championships.
Yeah. Super sticker from Candace Worthman for $10. We give you a big shout out, Candace.
Big shout out.
And thank you so very much. I'm just looking to see what on my cadaverous pallor. Mark, buy some soft white or CRI 3500 bulbs to make you look not as zombie white. Yeah, I don't know why I'm so pasty white looking. God, it's horrible.
I have to say, it is Wes's birthday week this week.
Wow.
Happy birthday, Wes.
Wes, that's really cool. You are you're an OG. Yeah. And that's really great that Kim knew that. I don't know why I didn't know that. That didn't cross my desk, Albert. I don't know why that is. Read More History says the regime is increasingly Stalinist, the loyalty oaths, the paranoia, making shows of enemies. Yeah. Can't disagree. Really cannot disagree at all. Chaplain Fred says, hi, Mark, Kim, Albert, Tony. I have 18 solar panels at home and save tons of money.
Awesome.
The problem is that my solar company went bankrupt. Now I have no warranty. The state said, so sorry, but you became a solar orphan. Wow, that's a wild story. I had not heard of such a story ever before. Man, that sucks.
I wonder if one company will fix another company's solar panels. If that,
Probably the answer is no, because I had a solar thing. I have a lot of solar at my house, and I couldn't even get the same company to talk to me. In other words, they have a relationship with this instrument that is measuring how much solar power is being generated. Sure. They wouldn't even talk to me unless they had done the installation. They said, we didn't do the installation, so we really can't talk to you about it.
Wow.
Like, wow, dude, you really sorry. Chaplain Fred, thank you for the $20 super chat, but that really sucks, Sorry to hear that. I am in the moment with Paul Sizzler II, says Gavin will be the first Gen X president. Trump poked the bear and woke him up. Gen X gets it done, and Newsom is rocking the boat. Gen X and the Remarkables will turn it all around. Yeah. If RFK Jr. is so pro-exercise, then he should make gyms free, especially for teens, seniors, and low-income folks. I love that idea. They don't want to make anything free. They want to privatize everything. Don't you understand? They want to privatize every breath you take, every move you make. They want to make sure you're paying some private industry for that move. That is the plan. Tomorrow, David Katz is here. What else is on the show tomorrow, Kim?
Lots of good news stories. We're going to have a great time. It's going to be a barrel of monkeys and a barrel of laughs.
Okay, that's not what I wanted. Albert, do you know who's on the show tomorrow? I'll tell you.
Dimitri Lascaris is on the show tomorrow.
Thank you. We're going to talk. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
That's okay. David Katz will be on the show as well. So it will be a good one. Yeah.
We'll talk Ukraine with somebody who really knows the territory well tomorrow. And I'm excited about all things. Now I'm lost in my own thoughts. So I got KFI Radio after this. It is National Radio Day. Those of you in Los Angeles, you want to listen to iHeartRadio, you can. It's nothing like this show, but maybe you'll enjoy it. Albert, thank you. Tomorrow, looking forward to seeing you again.
Albert, thank you.
Kim,
how are you?
Thanks, everybody. And if you
I'm
would,
Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Here's to you. Out of time.
Bye-bye.
Out of time. Bye-bye. Out of time. Coachella Valley Coffee, thank you. And bye-bye.